And welcome to today's podcast where I'm joined by Mr. Paul Hogden. I always get your name like Hodgkin. I'm always wanting to say Hodgkin or Hodgson. I don't know. Hogden is a bloody hard one on the tongue. Although it's very simple. I've seen someone else actually. You were on another guy's podcast the other day, and he done the exact same thing.
Yeah.
He's like, "Yeah, Paul," and then he looked at your second name, and he's like,
"How do I say it?" Yeah, it's pronounced exactly as it's spelt, but so many people, you know, get it slightly wrong, and it's. I'm normally Paul Hogden, which is quite funny, but I don't have the knife.
One of my old classics as a kid. Crocodile Dundee.
Indeed.
Paul Hogden. So you own Flow Marketing, which is based. Where about Cambridgeshire, round about there?
So we're just outside Cambridge in Newmarket, horse racing capital of the world. Yeah.
Newmarket, yeah, that's what I know it for, the horse racing place. But I know it's around about that Cambridge area. Where all the clever folks come from down there. So for anyone who isn't familiar with what you do what Flow Marketing is, and a bit about your background, can you just give us a condensed version of like where, you know, your background, you know, where did you come from? Was it, I know I can see it obviously in LinkedIn, I know your background comes from, but we want to know how you found yourself in the position you're in just now.
Yeah, great. I mean, and thanks for the opportunity, by the way, Craig, of getting me on here. But I decided that I was going to do marketing a long time ago, and kind of digital marketing. I was kind of there. I won't say at the beginning, but certainly somewhere around there. But I was fortunate enough to be able to have been able to talk my way into Oxford University, probably scoring the lowest ever A-level results to get a place in Oxford University, because I got a D, an E, and get this, an N, which nobody even knows what that is, but completely messed up my A-levels. But what I did is I drove down there and I told them that I was good enough, and I think they were so shocked that they said, "We'll pick you up through clearing." So I got in there. I hated it, so I left, wanted to basically just earn money. So I took jobs in IT support and things like that. And that was kind of just as the internet was kind of starting off, and then slowly gravitated into the marketing and the creative side. I spent 15 years working for European companies in marketing and that type of thing, in horticulture of all things, which is hilarious because I'm massively allergic to all plants. So that's a challenge. And then I got to the end of that time, and I decided, much to my wife's absolute amazement, that I was going to jack it all in and go it alone. And I decided that Flock would be born, and that was nearly 10 years ago now. So I've been doing websites and online marketing and that type of stuff all since 2011.
So although you've got that background, and obviously you went and you've got this kind of digital background, you've always wanted to be in marketing. What are you actually good at now? Is it the design side of things? Is it the planning? Like, just it's a genuinely serious question, because sometimes I talk to guys who own marketing agencies like yourself, and they couldn't even design a logo, and they own some of the best creative agencies. So, obviously you don't have to. You could just be, the strategy guy, the kind of businessman, if you like, or are you actually that creative?
So I did start in creativity, and my background wasn't in design, although I got one of the D, which was my A-level result. That was my last bit of design, formal design qualification that I got. So I could do it, although my qualifications probably didn't reflect that. But mine was more in the strategy side. So I spent a lot of time in the commercial side, kind of working out how things worked and what the best way to do things were, really.
No, I'm just curious. Everyone's got a different story. So I was curious to know if you were one of those guys that just ran a marketing agency and pretty much hadn't a bloody clue how to do any of it. Well, not I hadn't a clue how to do any of it, but you know what I mean.
I do.
Background. That was what I was good at, and then one day I found myself owning an agency, and I wasn't a business owner, and it was just a whole mess. And
it is, and it's always, and especially at the moment, it is a bit of a hot mess. And I'm learning new stuff all the time. You know, I thought for quite a long time that you know, money was an infinite kind of thing and stuff like that. And then suddenly when the lights go off and, you know, and the people start phoning up and cancelling stuff, not through anything that you've done, it is quite an interesting time. And it certainly made me look and reevaluate how, you know, how our business runs, and we try and run it as lean as we possibly can. And that's been something I've tried to do all the way through. You know, we're a small but perfectly formed business of sort of 3.5, 4 people. But I have no desire really to go any more than that. I'd just rather have better quality than quantity, although we are looking at models at the moment for doing sort of what I call everlasting websites and stuff at the moment. So, yeah, that's quite an exciting thing.
So on your team, you said 3.5, 4 people there. Are those in an office, or is it a bunch of local guys that maybe meet up a couple of times a week in a coffee shop, or is it all freelancers? Because everyone's, you know, and especially during COVID, you know, I've got friends that had full-on agencies that just get shot at the office. They're just like, nah, it's just an outsourced job now. So what's your setup like?
Now that's a really good question, because actually it sounds like other people that you know, because I do hire locally, so everyone who works with me lives locally. But what we found is we've worked equally, probably even more efficiently, because I'm probably the world's worst at distracting my own team of you know, clowning about and talking too much. You probably detected that actually they're doing brilliant work working from home, and we're at the moment looking to see what the possibilities are of just continuing that or scaling it down and working here in my office, you know, and kind of being a little bit more come and go, more flexible, because what I've learned is trust, you know, complete trust in the people that I work with, because they've managed to, you know, carry off all of the things that I wanted them to do in the timescales and to a good level without me having to be jumping on them all the time, which is brilliant.
Yeah. So I think we're in a fortunate industry where, you know, even if you have to scale up as a business, you don't have to get a bigger office and have local people. You could get a German developer or whatever if need be, or anywhere else in the world for that matter. But no, that all sounds good, and sounds like you're doing a grand job there, working fairly smart.
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the interesting things, and it's kind of, and this has kind of been the whole thing is we started to diversify probably far too much, and we you know, become all things to all people. You know, we were trying to get traction in so many different fields, and actually what this has taught us is to really, you know, nail ourselves down to websites, you know, the SEO side and kind of anything that is connected to that bit, but really just be specialists in that area rather than trying to be specialists in everything, which just never ever works. And it's been a massive learning point in to us, is to just be very specific.
Yeah, I think from my experience in running an agency, you know, I found that 70% of my time was either arguing, talking about, or debating web design, which if you look at my website now, we do not touch websites. You know, that is not my bag. I'm not interested in it, and I don't want to talk about it. And well, I love talking about it on podcasts, but
yes,
you know, if someone was to come to me, and
glaze over,
because I'm good at SEO, and my team is good at SEO things. We don't want to be a pay-per-click person or a social media person or any of that kind of stuff. And I know that you guys, you know, having a look at your website, you do graphic design, marketing, social media, photos and websites and everything else. But what we want to talk about today is something that we agree on, that people don't always take that serious. Well, they do to some extent, but websites is your thing, and how websites work with people. So, anyone can slap up a WordPress template, job done. It looks all right and stuff like that. But what happens after that? Obviously, there's a lot more digging around, a lot more analysis you can do. Whether you add Hotjar, and I'm sure someone like yourself analyzes that kind of thing with the view to changing that kind of stuff. And it's all about you making that website work for you, because it's my job to get traffic to it. If it looks crap, what's the point? It's not going to convert that well. So let's talk a bit about the websites that you design and your process for that, because we had a chat offline and you were saying guys will come to you and say, I've changed my website 3 times in the last 2 years, and you're like, why would you do that? So what, tell us a bit more about what you actually do in the background to fine tune a website and stuff like that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, talking about the process kind of from the outset, we spend a lot of time before we even start putting, fingers to keyboards or anything like that, to actually get a clear idea of what people are looking to achieve. Because some people don't want to do anything other than have a brochure site, and that's okay. If that's what they're after, if they're not looking for business online, I don't know why they would be like that, but some people are quite adamant that they have to do, F to F, and that's, or P to P, and that's the way that they do their business. Some of it's probably more down to naivety and not realizing that it's a great avenue to open yourself up to a wider audience. But we like to take a lot of time to actually work out what the goals are of the customer. And as you said, Craig, I've worked with people who have said, this is the 3rd website that I'm having in as many years. But actually what you quite often find is that sometimes they are their own worst enemy. That what they're doing is they think that it's the design that's the problem, but actually it's more to do with the organization and the processes and their expectations. And that can be quite a big issue, and it can really make, websites suck, for want of a better word, because if you have somebody who isn't creative or doesn't understand the processes that you need to go through, then quite often you can be jumping from A to D to B to C and lose so many people through, wrong turns and poor design and those types of things, that actually it becomes a bit of a mess, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I think, there's web design and there's web design, and I think when you get a good website, it all comes down to the processes and the procedures that you've got in place. Again, I'll happily talk about the failure that I had as an agency owner, and I was just looking at people and saying, how much money can I get out of this guy for a website? There was no process, there was no thing, and what I'd done all the time was massively underprice it. So I'd love to know more about, you get a guy like me coming in and I tell you what to do. What does the process look like from there to get? Because obviously, what you're doing is it's a complex process. It's not just I want the website the color red and I've got 20 pages of content. See you later, job done. That's not what you're about. There's more than that. And obviously, there's a difference between £1,000 website and a £10,000 website, which you want to be seen as the premium guy who does that. But what is the fundamental things that you do that makes your websites go, become a polished item? Whereas, what I was doing when I was pulling out websites is I was churning it out. I was guessing what the client wanted. There was no real processes in between to get nearer the picture, and it pretty much became a fight with the client saying, piss off, you can't change your mind anymore. That's not what it's about. You've only given us £1,000. So what does the process look like?
So the process is, there's a lot more upfront before the designing goes on. So essentially, what we do first of all is we walk through the process of how they do how they get customers traditionally. So outside of online, what it is that they're doing, how they're doing it, and we map it out. We map it out so that we understand what it is they're doing, and essentially we try and then bring that into the digital world. And potentially we might have to have 2 or 3 iterations, which is where some of the value has to come, because sometimes, especially if it's a completely new site that isn't necessarily hasn't been tried and tested, sometimes you have to go through that process a couple of times to actually allow that to be a smooth flowing process. So the main thing is that we understand the process, we understand who their competitors are, and we understand what their company goals are, because the business goals are, to my mind, some of the most important things that have a lot of gold in there as to their indication and their appetite for where they want to go. Normally, if they've got big ambitions, then generally they have a more realistic expectation as to what it is that they want to invest in it. But as I said to you before we started the show, quite often they'll have a pot of money, $10,000 or whatever it is, and they'll want to invest the whole thing directly into the website. Now, as you know, being an SEO guy, having invested all of that, that there's still more to do, because it doesn't just suddenly magically start to happen after you have a new website. There are a lot more processes afterwards, and we like to talk through with them that post website there is more to do. And I think that that's quite often where traditional web developers or new web developers don't understand. They begin and end, start, I don't have a website, end, I have a website. And the same with with some people who are more perhaps graphic designer orientated. They see it as a project, as a brochure would be. But as we all know, a brochure only works when you get it out the door and into a customer's hand. And that's essentially the same as a website. And it's about educating them, to talk to them that it's not a beginning, middle and end process. It is an iterative process that requires quite a lot of time. And it can take a few iterations to get the type of flow and the type of inquiries and the type of visitors to come to their site and enjoy it. Yeah. And that's kind of one of the biggest reasons that people's websites don't work very well, because they're just simply not getting the customers to their website in the first place, which is it's a massive problem, isn't it? You know that yourself, because that's your game.
Yeah, and I've had people in the past again, saying, "No, I've got the website now, nothing's happening." You're like, you need to do something. You need to play having Gumtree or something. The low plumber marketing, it all comes down to your budget. But a lot of times, what you find is these web designers have emptied the pockets of the person, and not emptied the pockets, but they've been naive as well, jumping into that. And whereas what you hit the nail on the head, you should have a budget and then say, right, how am I going to spend this? Whether it's £25,000, you might say, right, I'm going to pay 5 or 6 grand max for a website, and I'm going to spend 19 grand in the first year on a mixture of paid and social or whatever. I think that would be a wise thing to do, and get that data from that 19 grand to further pump up your website.
Yeah, and also it depends as well as to how fast they want results, because that's another driving factor. If they're, well, we've got this money, but, we've got to see something back quickly. Well, okay, that's going to be, again, a different beast altogether, because you might not necessarily be able to do some of the longer lasting stuff like the SEO and things like that. You might have to go into AdWords or other forms of instant advertising. But also, people are quite reluctant to move what they learn from things like AdWords into SEO, because I feel that when you learn from one, you can turn it into a more permanent state of affairs if you start optimizing the pages for the search terms that actually get you the business. So that's another kind of thing. But yeah, it is something I would rather see somebody look at paying, if they had a budget, that it was sort of a 40-60 split, where you know, 40% of the budget went on the website and the design and everything like that, and the 60% was used as a battle chest for getting those people to come through the door and start pumping that lifeblood around the website, starting to understand where people are going, where they're not going, and if it's important and they're not going there, how can we change it? You know, what's gone wrong? How can we put it right? Because it could just be something's not in the place that people find it intuitive for. You know, that's quite often one of the issues that we have. And really, you know, coaching people through the process. I don't like just leaving people with a finished website. It kind of upsets me, because I know that there's so much more to do, because a website is by far and away your best employee. It's the employee that never complains, doesn't ask for a pay rise, doesn't get sick, and always talks about your business in exactly the way that you want it to. So why wouldn't you invest the time, effort, and money in it?
Yeah, but it's I think people are, it's beyond belief, you know, the thought process of some people. But having had a look at your website, you've got two different options available for customers. You are, which I don't see a lot of people doing this option. Actually, I think it's well, I might be wrong. I don't really look at web designs all the time, but web designers all the time. But you've obviously got your kind of, you know, just pay for your website kind of offer, and you've got this monthly thing going on. Is that a better option for a small business who just needs? Because what I always felt when I had an agency was that you get someone and they've gone a real low budget. You know, they give you a couple $100 for a website or whatever, and then they'd be on to you for added pictures, you know, down the line, fixing emails and a whole bunch of other crap, which you're just like, oh, man, I can't deal with this man anymore. And cleverly, I think that's a great option for a small business, is to give you, you know, what obviously I know you've got to configure your price depending on what you want. But paying $100 a month to have a website that's continuously updated. I mean, I'm assuming you guys are fine-tuning that all the time. You know, if schema comes out, you're adding schema stuff in, and or do you go that deep? Do you actually add schema and stuff like that to websites as well?
Yeah, we do. We do add schema onto the website, and if there was something that was coming out that was going to have you know, a hugely positive impact on sites in general, we would add that in as well as kind of a job lot. But I agree with you. I think that new businesses and small businesses often have the crappiest end of the stick. They can't, you know, their options are to go to, and I'm not knocking them, but, you know, to your pre-formed websites, your Weebly's, your Squarespaces, and those types of things, and your options are fairly limited. But worse than that, as you well know, I'm sure, these types of websites fall in and out of love with search engines all the time. Sometimes they're loved, and other times they sink without a trace. And you know, it depends what the algorithm's doing at the time and all that type of stuff. But the trouble is as a small business, when you're relying on that, you need to be able to have more control. But also, you don't have the time to sit and learn about how to develop your own website generally, although, you know, maybe at the beginning you will, but very quickly that kind of disappears when your business picks up. But you need a good quality representation of what you do, and you need to know how much it's going to cost every month. And you probably don't have $2.5 grand kicking about for a basic site, but over a couple of years, £100 a month kind of doesn't really hurt. So we're kind of bundling everything in together. So your hosting, your updates, any updates that, you know, you send to us, those types of things. And then if you sign up to a second term, we even redesign the site for you so that you get a nice looking website in year 3. So that's why it's called the Everlasting Website, because we want people to keep, you know, working with us, and we want them to keep growing with us. And actually having that option from £100 a month is in our opinion, a good way of being able to do that.
something I think, even someone like myself, now, I got my website designed by a guy who no longer does websites. He's went on to bigger and better things. So every time I'm my website updated now, finding guys and they're fucking it up and all that kind of stuff, and you're like, fuck me. You know, and sometimes it would be good just to have it feel like that, where you just said, Paul, listen, I'm on your package, I'll pay you X amount of money, can you go in and fix a few buttons here? Because again, that's the type of level of support quite a lot of people need. They need things added throughout the course of a year as well. As you say, it's not just a put out and shut up type of thing. You know, you may come up with a idea in 2 months' time saying, oh man, I want to add a consult call calendar to my website, but I'm not going to skills to do it all the time to do it. Can you do it? And I think that's the great thing that people should maybe think about, rather than just paying your $2,500. Which I think most people could probably scrape that up anyway. But I think it's that on maintenance where you can say, Paul, you know, I'll pay you X amount of money and you do 5 hours worth of week or whatever, you know, and I think that's a great option for any small business, or even not even small businesses, just for anyone who doesn't have an in-house developer, because this is the $50 to look for someone to add a widget or whatever, and you're just like, that's too much work.
You're absolutely right. If people are serious about doing something online, they need to have a presence that they can rely upon. It's in essence theirs, so they can you know, have on command a new page, a new picture, a video, you know, a whole, you know, change some of the text about, you know, those types of things. But they don't actually have to do it. So all they need to do is just tap us an email, send it across. We make the changes, tell them that it's done, and that's that. But also, we try and keep in contact with them on a monthly basis to try and give them some ideas as to the things that they might want to start doing. You know, so, you know, hey, perhaps you should start running a blog or something like that, so that they can actually start to do something positive. Because as we all know, going back to static websites is like looking at the 1984 Marshall Ward catalogue, you know, or the K's catalogue. You know, it's totally irrelevant after the second or third time. People go, wow, the first time, third time, not so impressed. So you've got to keep having something that's different, so that people take a bit more notice, that they want to come back to your website, not that, oh, I've seen it, nothing's going to change for the next 2 years.
No, you're perfectly right. So guys, if you're listening, take that into consideration, because you just need it. You just need it if you're taking it as a professional. Now, going back to web design and changes and all that kind of stuff, what does your team do, you know, in terms of making these changes? What makes you think that the changes that you guys make are better than Joe Blogs? What are you using? Is it Hotjar? Is it other, like, what leads to the decisions to make these changes, and what I'm trying to get from you? You know, what things are you guys looking at internally before you say, well, that would be better there, or add this or add that, because people are not clicking on it? Because again, people can make up stuff, and I've seen a lot of CRO guys, and you're just like, you're not even using data to make decisions, and you're guessing there. And I hate that. And I would even if it wasn't true, I'd love someone just to say we do use Hotjar or something, just to make me feel more at ease. Because I think so. What do you guys use, like web designers in general?
So for us, we use Lucky Orange, which is very, very similar to Hotjar. So that's got heat mapping and also records every session as well. So you can actually watch people's mouse movements, which is actually really fascinating, because you can start picking up how people are using the website, what bits they're not going to, whether they're going below the fold, whether you should be moving stuff up and trying it. And that's the type of stuff that people need to know. But we also tag as well that information, because obviously there can be quite a lot to sift through. So what we do is we tag the pages that we think are the most important, so that when somebody goes on there, the recordings are then tagged as being on that page, so we can go straight to them, have a look at half a dozen sessions, look at what people are doing or aren't doing, and then start looking at what's an alternative, what can we try, what can we change, what can we move, and those types of things. Because you're quite right, you can sit there and look at Google Analytics, which in itself, you know, tells an interesting story, but it does only tell you half a story, because it says, okay, you get there, but it doesn't tell you what you do after that. So we offer a service where, you know, we can actually sit there and diagnose with the client the types of things that they could try, that we could change, that could get better results, so that people start getting those levels of inquiries and those types of sales that they're actually looking to achieve.
Yeah, so I think it's hugely important to know that there is, as I say, data behind those changes. But going back again to the pay monthly option, you obviously come to you, just say 100 guys come to you. How many guys are going for the pay monthly option? I'd be curious to know, if the guys still fancy just paying up front, or is it like a 50-50 split?
What's that? If they want to have a bespoke site but don't want to go down the line of paying monthly?
Oh, I'm just out of curiosity. You get 2 plans, and I would be curious to know. Say you just use a figure of 100 clients. How many of your clients are on pay monthly against just paying up?
Well, it's a fairly new service, so we only really introduced it just as the lockdown went into place. So we've got about 25 clients that we've picked up over the COVID time, and it is being, you know, we have to limit how many we're doing, because obviously the idea for us is we want to accumulate over time, so that we have a nice sort of buffer for ourselves, that we can cover our business costs and things like that. That's what it's going to be there for. And then we want to pick up regular work as well, so that's kind of the money that's going to help us build our business. So we're trying to limit it to kind of, you know, 5 to 10 businesses a month, so that we can offer a really good service, so that our service levels stay high, and so that our customers are getting stuff turned around in a reasonable amount of time. Because the thing with a website, there's no real reason why they can't be turned around quickly. Most of the time it's down to preparation, and it's also down to customer expectation and customer management. When you sit down with a customer and say, okay, who's going to be writing the content? Is it you or is it me? If it's me, that's great. There's going to be a charge involved. If it's going to be you, that's great, but we're going to need it before we can finish your website. It's really, really good to kind of say, okay, and where are we getting the photos from, and where are we getting the videos from? It's about having those types of conversations up front, so that there's no, well, I thought you were doing it all kind of conversation. You know, we've all been there. I've been there before. You know, there's a level of assumption where, as the web designer, we go, well, we expect you, the customer, to come up with that, and they're saying, no, we've just paid you for a website. So it is about that management of expectation.
So when you get a client on board and have agreed to either your package or get a website built, what kind of technology do you use for them to give you the documents? Is it just like Google Documents, or how does it work? Because I've literally had guys come into me with scraps of paper.
Yeah. So currently we use Dropbox. We use Dropbox, but what we do is we folder every single page. So basically inside a folder is a Word document, the images, and any other direction that there might be. So basically we build kind of like a dummy page inside Dropbox of all the things that are expected, so that I can go back to the customer and say, okay, these 5 pages are ready for your review. Before we put them into the website, just check them, change them. You know, if you don't like what you see, let us know. We can talk about it, or you can change it. And then once we get sign off on, you know, those pages, we can then put them into the website and get it running. But I think the main thing is to not misjudge what customers are expecting, because you know, I've done it before, and certainly in the first sort of half of the business's life, I've probably done it more times than I care to imagine, where there's just this assumption that things are gonna happen. The other thing as well is where you're waiting for so long that that actually you know, the project kind of stalls, which is another sort of famous thing where the customer goes underground, they ghost you, and you know, and you never hear from them week to week. We put a clause actually inside our contract that basically said if we don't hear from you in 60 days, we will raise the final invoice, but we will finish the work when you come back to us. Yeah. And they have, a year later, they've gone, oh yeah, sorry about that. Now where were we? And it's like, whoa, where did that one come from? It's tricky, right? Yeah.
But I actually had a story. I don't know if I should tell it. I
anonymize.
I used this guy for web design who was local to me, and I put him onto this guy. I didn't want to do it, so the guy came to me and he's like, listen, I need a way. And I said, listen, need a new website, go to this guy, get it, then come back to me talking about it. So guy initiated the web design when he put his half up front as he normally do.
Right.
2 years later, so the guy just got busy and just fucked off and just started the guy came back 2 years later and asked the web designer to find the changes, and the web designer gave him a mouthful of abuse and told him basically to F off. And the guy was being, he's like, so what happened with this guy? Like, why would he be rude to me? Can
you imagine that if that was a guy building your extension? If he just suddenly got up and walked off for 2 years on your house,
but,
you know. Yeah.
I love the thing you used there when you said there's always this assumption. I like the way you worded that. Like the clients do just assume a hell of a lot going to be done by you and nothing.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there like, what the hell? Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. But I mean, we actually go through when we're talking on the phone, or we haven't, you know, used to come to the office, or if we do it over Zoom, we say, you know, we want this to be a linear, you know, a process that has a beginning and an end quickly, because you're not going to get any benefit. You know, you're going to start paying, and you're not going to get the benefit from it. So for us, it's really important that you are engaged, and if you're not, or if you feel that it's starting to stall for any reason, please, let's talk about it. We try and update everybody every week as to the status of their project, so that we're not leaving it, you know, because the other temptation is we get busy and they drop to the back of the queue, not because they're bad people, but just because they're not shouting. Yeah. We all know that he who shouts the loudest gets seen the first. So the more animated people tend to get seen quicker, and the poor guy who's just sort of sitting there patiently tends to get pushed back and back. So we also have a process now of making sure that on a Friday, an email goes out, a phone call's made or something like that, just to say, hey, just checking in, just making sure that that things are in place, you know. And I think the longest I've had of a website is 7 years. But they've paid for it.
Jesus. Yeah, it's not too bad if they paid for it. You know.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's fun, but
yeah.
But out with. Sorry, I was going out with web design and what we're doing, and packaging and everything else. What else are you guys doing to try and bring in new business? Because we've obviously went through COVID and people are adopting the strategies. The web design monthly packaging, a clever one from you guys. Is there anything else that you're doing maybe slightly different to the rest of the world?
Yeah, so we do, as you quite rightly pointed out, we do also do media in house as well. So my real creative talent, if you're gonna, I was always really disappointed when I used to work in the industries that I did, being a designer in inverted commas initially. was that I could never really draw stuff freehand. You know, my designer who I have now is absolutely amazing, can actually draw stuff by hand, and it's so impressive. I could assemble stuff to make it look nice, but I wouldn't ever say that I could draw. So my creative talent is video and photos. So I know that having bespoke photos on a website lifts the game to a completely different level. I know that having video on a website lifts the website to a completely different level, because it's engaging. People know who they're going to work with, and people like that type of stuff. You know, you see on our business website, you know, we've got video of me and the team and the dog, and you know, and that's great, because at least you know what you're going to expect when you come through the door, and it breaks down barriers. So yeah, I mean, I've been doing video editing and stuff like that since 2002, sort of as a kind of a side hustle, as it were, when I was working full time as well. And I got some great customers by mistake, just talking to people on trains, because I used to work in Holland 3 days a week. So I used to just get talking to people on a train, and they'd say, "Oh, what do you do?" And I'd, rather than saying I work with plants that I'm allergic to, I used to say, "Oh, I do videos." And a couple of times people would say, "Can you do that?" And I'd say, "Yeah, I can do that." They'd go, "How much is it?" And you just, you know, just come up with a number, and they go, "That's amazing. I've just been charged 10 grand for that." And I got asked to go all over the place. I did some work in Holland and Seville and all types of, and Preston. I mean, Preston, you know, all over the place for corporate businesses, and they were and they love what we did, and so I wanted to integrate that in there, because I think that people like to be able to have all of these things, but quite often they don't have the time to sit there and talk to 15 different people. But if we can do some of that in-house, and we can do some video testimonials, we can do some staff shots and shots of the office and stuff like that, and it's good quality, and you know, people like it, then we should offer that, because people just like to have that stuff taken off their mind.
So is it only local businesses you deal with then, because you're offering, like, you know, out to the office? What if a guy in Manchester you signs up, gets his website, and says, "Paul, you know, I need some fresh photos of the team"?
Yeah. Well, Preston, Craig. That's as far as I've travelled before. I mean, literally. I mean, because I worked in Europe, getting on a plane, getting on a train, getting on a car, and traveling 4 or 5 hours never really bothered me, providing that, you know, it's sensible, and that there's, you know, that there's something in it for everybody. I you know, we've never minded being across the country or whatever. Obviously, if we have to start going abroad and stuff like that, that starts to get a bit limiting. But we would normally, you know, get in contact with somebody a bit more local. We can still do the editing here. We can still do the photo editing here, as long as the shots are a sufficient quality. We can actually put it together here. There's no reason why we can't. So in all honesty, if it's reasonably local, you know, as in, you know, UK, and something that we could achieve in a day, then I would make sure that we were doing it. If it was something a bit further afield, or we were booked up, then I'd look at talking to somebody, but then bringing the editing back in house and bringing the photo editing back in house, so that we could achieve this consistent results. Yeah,
that makes sense. I'm just curious to know how far video and photography. But sadly, we are out of time, Paul. I'm pretty sure we can talk all day, every day, but
absolutely,
you're on a lot of different webinars, watching a lot of different stuff, and you know, you have a lot of different other strings in your business as well, which is marketing. But anybody is interested in what to say in terms of web design, if you want to use it, or whatever, what matter is website you use.
Yeah.
So flop.
Yeah, I mean, so go on.
No, sorry, carry on.
No, I was going to say no. I mean, you basically covered it all. I mean, for us, you know, we love working with SMEs. For us, you know, we're really looking to push the stuff for the smaller businesses and the new businesses. I'm feeling in a recession, there's going to be quite a lot of businesses out there who are going to be looking to start up, and they probably need something reliable. And hopefully we would be on their list of people to call.
Yeah, I think what I would say to anyone out there is don't go and pay your £700 or £800 thinking you're getting a cheap website and then have to pay 2 times. You're maybe better just going to Paul and charging more for a website up front, but it's got that option to pay it monthly over a 2 or 3 year period. Get it done properly by a Christmas company. Things that I see happen every day of the week. People get their fingers bumped, changing web design. You know, half finished, absolutely the worst possible start for anyone starting a business. So try and get professional or one day the few others doing due diligence and getting that stuff. But it has been beyond finally, and no doubt we will.
That'd be great. Thank you very much.
Cheers.